So great. You get to watch yourself while we're doing it.
We do. It's great. He's already awkward, and it's been on for like 30 seconds here. What's up, everybody? This is the Engine 25 spoiler discussion for The Last Jedi. I hope you've seen the movie if you're watching this. If not, I would love it if you watch, if you don't care to be spoiled, but we're going to talk about some stuff, and if you want...
And go see the movie.
Go see the movie. It's been out like a week yet. You know, if you have a job, it's the weekend now.
No more excuses.
So my name's Brandon. I obviously did the review on the movie on our website a few days ago. I'd like to introduce some people to you. This is, to my immediate left is Adam. He's a high school buddy of mine who is pretty awesome Star Wars fan. To his left is Stacy.
Hello.
And then over the phone, we actually have James from he runs a Star Wars blog called The Real McCoy. Say hi, James.
Hi.
Nice. Nice and short.
Always succinct.
So, I'd like everybody to talk about yourself and your background, like what Star Wars means to you, so kind of get an outline of how your opinions on the movie compare to that. Does that make sense? Am I rambling already?
Makes sense.
We're like 2 minutes in. All right. So, Adam, go ahead.
Okay. I'm first. All right. So my Star Wars background. The first memories I actually have from Star Wars was borrowing it from our neighbors because we didn't have the movies growing up, and I remember my brother borrowing them, but don't remember much from them. But then I became a fan during the special edition re-release, probably like a lot of kids in my generation. And then I was 10 when Episode 1 came out, so I've always been a big prequels fan because I was in that demographic that it was really targeting. I didn't mind Jar Jar Binks. There, I said it. I realized the flaws as an adult, but
James is laughing at you.
I didn't hate Jar Jar Binks when he came out, and I do have a Jar Jar Binks tie. So that's my Star Wars background.
You wore your Firefly shirt, but not your Jar Jar Binks tie.
Yeah, well, if I didn't bring a Star Wars shirt up with me from Savannah.
It's okay.
So that's my fault.
Yeah, he's from out of town.
Yeah.
We thought he was going to have to call in.
But holidays, travel. But since outside of the movies, I play a lot of Star Wars games, some video, and a lot of Star Wars tabletop games. So a bit of EU lore in that and books.
Okay. Stacy, I would like you to touch on how you approach the new movies too, but go ahead, talk about yourself.
Thinking about my history with Star Wars after listening to his reflections, really kind of put things in perspective for me because, I mean, you said you were 10 when Episode 1 came out? I was 10 when Return of the Jedi came out.
Nice.
So for me, like Star Wars, is more of a feeling than a movie. It's a connection to my past, a connection to my youth, and so when I go into the newer films, I purposefully avoid all spoilers, and it is possible. So going in to see Last Jedi, I did not see a trailer, didn't read one article, didn't see any pictures.
Going in, the only thing you knew was the title and what had been set up in The Force Awakens.
Right. Yeah. And so so for me, that is a wonderful feeling because going back to when I was young and the Star Wars films were being released, the original trilogy, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have this immediate access.
Social media.
Yeah.
There's a storm around Star Wars right now.
So it was you didn't know what to expect, and it was always this magical experience of, like the walkers on Hoth and Empire, and being, just I saw it at a drive-in, and I laid on my grandmother's hood of her station wagon. And so, so Star Wars for me, it just means, it means summer, it means fun, and a connection to my youth.
Okay. What about you, James? You probably have a lot to say on this too.
Well, I guess I really first got into Star Wars around the Shadows of the Empire time.
Okay.
I think I got a Boba Fett and IG-88 two-pack, like Battle of the Bounty Hunters type action figure thing for Christmas one year, and I was like, "What the hell is Boba Fett? Oh my god, this is amazing!" So, and now, actually, I'm in my living room right now, staring at a giant case of Boba Fett figures, and I think he's in there somewhere. Um, so yeah, and then the special editions came out shortly after that, and I think I was like 15 when Episode 1 came out. Not quite a Jar Jar fan, but actually, the episode of Clone Wars with Jar Jar Binks and Mace Windu, he's completely tolerable and actually fairly helpful in that episode. So, says they hate Jar Jar. I'm like, you should watch Clone Wars because he wasn't awful in that one episode.
Fair point.
Yeah. Best thing Clone Wars
Other
did
than
was
that-
redeem everything in the prequels.
Yeah,
Almost
that's true.
everything.
It does help.
Um,
The
I
Revenge of the Sith novel. It's I mean that book. Revenge of the Sith is cool, but like the book makes it twice as good.
It does.
And other than
You
that, I
read-
do just a
talk about
bunch
reading that when
of
it came
Star
out.
Wars cosplay. So
nice.
like 501st and all those. If anybody knows what that is, which I'm guessing enough people do since they put them in the movie. So
Fair.
so yeah, and I run a Star Wars blog that basically I shout at the sky and then people agree or disagree. And it's really fun when they disagree. So
Yeah, I disagreed with some stuff with you over the last week or so.
yeah,
Yeah,
it happens.
it happens. I first saw Star Wars, and I searched for this past summer. The middle of the '90s, they had like that one last time, watch the original trilogy in the original version one last time for like a VHS set.
Right.
And it's my parents just moved, and I was looking for it, and I couldn't find it. And I was going to line it up with these because it was last I saw it was probably a little over a year ago. It's been since The Force Awakens came out, but it was lost in the shuffle, and I couldn't find it. But so that was my introduction, being a little 5 or 6 year old kid and watching it with my dad, and it was real big. He was in college or something when it came out, or just around probably the age that we are now at first. So it was real big for him, and watching Star Wars with my dad. And then the special editions came out. I saw A New Hope, actually at a theater that's right around the corner here. It's still open, with my uncle who had never seen Star Wars, and he hated it. So that's kind of funny. But the New Hope special edition I saw in the theater, and then I like the prequels for what they are. They certainly have some weaknesses. People's criticisms wouldn't be wrong. There's a lot of legitimately cool stuff in especially spaceships and creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy watching the prequels once in a blue moon, especially if I feel it's time to do the saga situation. But then I met you right around the time Episode 2 came out. I probably had
Shortly
just
after.
come out. Yeah.
Shortly after.
So then we bonded over Star Wars and X-Men and a lot of nerdy,
Definitely X-Men.
yeah, a lot of nerdy 12-year-old things. And then I really like Revenge of the Sith. It has the least issues, I think, of the prequels. But when I was really excited when Disney decided that they were making more Star Wars movies, and here we are today after 3 Disney Star Wars movies. I really liked The Force Awakens. I don't buy into the retread arguments. It hits some of the same beats, but I'm not even looking at the camera. It hits some of the same beats, but there are a lot of original new ideas, a lot of great characters that were set up in The Force Awakens. So that's pretty awesome.
I agree.
And then Rogue One came out. Really enjoyed that. And then here we are at The Last Jedi, and so that's the thing. Before we move to The Last Jedi, give me your 20-word review of The Force Awakens.
My 20-word review. Well, I thought that...
Don't count.
Okay. When I first saw the movie, I was very unsure. I was on the fence. Actually, the night that it came out, I saw it in Savannah with a friend, and we stepped out and we started talking. I was like, what do you think about this? Well, I don't know. It was good, but I had this problem, and what about that? And I was just like, well, we could turn around and go see it again. And he was like, I'd be down. So we stepped off the curb, turned around, stepped on the curb, and went and watched the movie a second time. Um, the more I watched The Force Awakens, the more I fell in love with it, and now especially the characters, Rey in particular. I'm a huge fan of Rey. Finn, I think, still has room to. Finn, I think, still has room to develop. Poe Dameron is a character taken out of the original trilogy and put in the new movies. He's fantastic in just about every way. And I know there were complaints when the movie first came out that these are new characters, we don't know anything about them, why should we care? Well, the same was true about the characters in A New Hope when it first came out. We only grew to love them because we watched it 100,000 times, and both sequels, and then prequels, and so on, and read books and all that.
What about Han Solo?
I think Han's death was necessary for the development of Kylo Ren, even though it was left open-ended. And I know Harrison Ford had personal feelings, so I totally saw it coming, even though it was unfortunate. But I don't dislike it. I think it was necessary for the tone that this new saga wants to set. That, you know, those are not just our those three characters alone are not just our heroes anymore. We have new heroes.
So let's murder the old ones.
I like that. It's a good way to put it, I think. What about you, Stacey?
Well, so I did the same thing with The Force Awakens. I didn't see any. I saw the teaser trailer when it came out because at that point, like, we had no idea there was ever going to be a new Star Wars. So the fact that a new one was coming out was really cool, and so I didn't have really any expectations. But before I went in, I did an interview. And I said, as long as they are not trying to fly into the middle of something big to blow it up as the climactic conclusion, I'll be happy with the film. And, well, there you go. You have Starkiller Base. But with that said, I've really enjoyed it. I've really loved the practical effects and what they were trying to do, trying to really kind of give it the feel of the originals, kind of where the prequels did not feel like part of the Star Wars universe. And like, I had a total different idea of where I wanted the original cast to go. But,
So did George Lucas and Mark Hamill. I mean, I didn't say that.
Well, so I went in with, I'm here, show me something, and I enjoyed what I saw.
I like that. What did you think of The Force Awakens, James?
I liked all the new characters. They really promoted the hell out of BB-8 beforehand, and it was one of those things where it's like, I don't know, man, like, this could really backfire on them, and then you watch the movie and you go, oh no, he's freaking adorable. Like,
yeah, dude. And now they did the same thing with Porgs, I feel. It's like the Porg was the big marketing push.
Critical mass on Porgs. Like, people kind of fought back, but I think the movie was very self-aware that Porgs were going to be kind of annoying, and they treated them that way in the movie. So, like, they didn't bother me because it was like, okay, these are cute, but they're also kind of annoying. But so they treated that kind of appropriately in the movie, and it was funny.
Fair.
But then, so yeah, the new characters I really liked. Kylo Ren is friggin' awesome.
That was awesome.
My son's name is Ben, so when Han Solo comes out and goes, Ben, I was like, don't you call him that. I'm like tearing up going, his name is Ben. Like, so, yeah, I mean, and honestly, like, we were just talking about Han Solo, like, I mean, God forbid in the next few years when my grandmother passes away, because, like, I'm going to be like, no, it's my heart is already frozen solid because I watched Han Solo be murdered in front of me. So I feel no sorrow anymore because, like, my heart is dead. So I think that's the saddest I've ever been. I actually had flown up to Minnesota to my now fiance and I were making a trip basically to get back together, and we were going to watch The Force Awakens. And it did not happen that trip because we were so sad from attending our Han Solo funeral all weekend. So yeah, that was pretty much the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
It's
the movie is very good.
I get that, and I suspected based on the trailers that either Han or Chewie wasn't going to make it to the credits, and it's like the
Chewie's
moment
on
he walked out on
borrowed
that
time.
bridge, I was like, they're going to make me watch this. This is about to happen.
Yeah,
And I was really. My wife noticed it more than she's my fiance at the time, but we're married now. Apparently, I was really soft-spoken and collected and introverted after The Force Awakens, and I was like, "Yeah, I liked it. It was really good." I didn't really say anything else like the whole drive home, and that's because I don't think I was prepared for the way that Han Solo had to go, and I think that it services the story of the new characters very well, but it's still Han Solo.
I sat in the car and snotty, ugly cried for like 20 minutes, and then like my Emma was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "He's not even real. Like, he's not a real person. Why do I care?" So, and I think I know I don't want to jump into too much The Last Jedi since you're not on that yet, but I think I would have felt more at peace about it if it meant, we see Kylo unable to reconcile with what he's done and kind of come back and deal with that instead of fully going to kind of the dark side. I think I would have been more at peace with Han Solo's sacrifice. Instead, now it just feels dumb that he threw himself in front of a murderous psychopath and it didn't actually help anything.
Right, and they kind of we'll get to a little bit this in a little bit more detail, but in The Last Jedi, Snoke says something like, it's messed you up. Like
it's torn you apart.
Yeah, they reference it in like one line that he is not exactly okay with what he's done to Han, and then halfway through the movie they're just like, all right, you just got resolved now.
Yeah, well, no. At the end, Luke, Luke says, if you strike me down in anger, I'll stay with you the way your father does.
So they talk about like it stuck with him, but
spoiler.
Yeah, the word spoiler is directly above my head. But yeah, it's
in the movie. I think you're right. You start off, the very first thing you see Kylo do is he gets really angry and he smashes his helmet and he gets in his fighter and he does the exact thing he didn't do at the end of Last Jedi. He almost kills his parent and doesn't. So it's the exact opposite.
I have a lot to say about that.
It's on this point though that after that, until Luke says, "I'll be with you like your father," it's irrelevant. It's like, okay, yeah, you did that, but every other thing driving Kylo's emotions is his interactions with Rey throughout basically the rest of the movie.
That is
like further down the list.
That's fine. We can go ahead and mention that. What did you have any major expectations for The Last Jedi, either of you, before stepping in? Because I said it on social media earlier that week. I wanted something different. I didn't know exactly what to expect from the trailers. I'm a social media absorb everything. Like I don't deliberately seek out spoilers, but like I watch as much official media as I can. Right. So it's I didn't.
And I even read that Han Solo was going to die in Force Awakens, but I didn't really believe it. I mean, hell, I watched Titanic, and I'm like, no, this time it won't sink. So
it still sinks every time.
Every damn time, and so I watched The Force Awakens, and I was kind of like, they won't do it. Nah, they won't do it. Oh shit, they're doing it. Like,
yeah, and I almost kind of had a general idea of what to expect from The Force Awakens, and a lot of what I thought ended up being the case. Other than I didn't know that Rey was they played down Rey in the trailers, kind of like as though she wasn't the main character. There was a lot more Finn and Poe in the trailers, I felt. But with this movie, I didn't know exactly what to expect, and that was great. Even though I had seen every trailer I could find, they didn't talk a whole lot about the story even, and I had seen Mark Hamill's remarks about how he felt about some stuff. It is what. What did you expect walking into the movie?
Well,
Before I derail everything.
Before I went into the movie, I actually expected it to be more of a war movie because that's kind of the tone a lot of the trailers set. And by the way, on that point, the trailers did a phenomenal job, almost spoiling a lot, but not.
oh yeah,
Especially the second trailer that came out in like October. There was a lot of misdirection there.
It was, and then there was Luke saying this will not go the way you think it will.
I was like, that
On
seems
point.
meta.
It was great. But besides that, the only more of a meta thing, I expected them to address some of the differentness in the physical feel of the films and the sets and the setting, which they didn't do. But more on that later.
What about you?
Yeah, I had no real expectations going in. I was just, I really wanted, I really wanted that Luke kick-ass moment. Like Yoda got one in Revenge of the Sith, and Obi-Wan got his in Phantom Menace up against Darth Maul.
I feel like what we got was an attempt at that, but he also wanted to be really different.
Yeah, no, I just throughout all the movies, I've waited and would have loved to seen Luke unleashed and really show all of his abilities. But I'm hoping that for Rey. Like that's.
Did you have anything that you expected to see, James?
I just really didn't want to watch Luke Skywalker die. So
Yeah,
other than
that's
that,
another thing I said like at work last week.
You said that like the day before it came out. Like, I don't know how I feel, but I don't want to watch Luke Skywalker die.
the best Tumblr post I saw was like, if they make me watch Luke Skywalker die with my own two eyes, I swear to God. But I mean, other than that, I really was hoping to see Rey deal with more of her dark side, and then wanted to see Kylo deal with his light side. So the back-to-back fight was kind of what I felt like was the climax of the film, and then somehow wasn't the climax of the film.
It was the climax of the film, but it was only like 2/3 of the way through.
See, for me,
it was
that
really
was
weird.
the start of the film.
I don't think it was the 3-act structure. There was no 3-act structure in that movie. Like, actually, I have a question for everybody. How familiar is everyone with Rian Johnson going into this?
I love his other movies. Brick and Looper are both absolutely fantastic.
Agreed.
Brothers Bloom is good.
Yeah, I haven't seen
It's not
that
quite
one.
as good as the others. He's also
That was his
directed.
first one, right?
He's directed what I think are both the very best and one of the worst episodes of Breaking Bad. So that's funny. Like the Ozymandias episode in the last season is incredible. The episode about the fly in the lab, where they spend an hour talking about this fly that's just floating around where they're cooking the meth, like, and that drove me nuts. Like, and it's there. I guess there's probably, I haven't watched in a while. There's probably a lot of good character dialogue in there, but it felt like it went on and on and on.
So you're very familiar with Rian Johnson's work.
Yes, extremely familiar. And I was really excited when they even because they announced him before The Force Awakens came out. I was pretty excited for the idea of it, at least.
Yeah. Myself, I had seen Looper. I knew of Brick and the acclaim that it had, but otherwise wasn't really.
Brick and Looper, they're both on this wall somewhere behind us.
I knew nothing. I didn't know who was directing it, so
The cool
now I
thing
know.
about
Nice.
Rian Johnson, though, in like Brick and Looper, he has this really impressive ability to create language, which I think is perfect for Star Wars. We have a lot of the etymology of Star Wars is really unique in that, like, fans are like, we know what sabacc is, and we know what a nerf herder and a hydrospanner is, and we're like, okay, so give me more weird words, and Rian Johnson's really good at that. So I was looking forward to seeing a lot more of that, like kind of unique words and new concepts introduced. I don't really have any that are standing out right now, but I have only seen it once. So
That's a really good. I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're totally right. Now that I kind of ruminated on that for a second.
like every one of his, like especially Brick and Looper, I haven't seen the other one, but he kind of everything has a nickname in those movies. Like every type of character, all the archetypes, all the good guys and bad guys, they all have like kind of code names. And I was like, that's so Star Warsy. I hope they do that in Last Jedi.
Looper has like the Gatman, and then
Yeah.
the Blunderbuss. They use like these giant futuristic shotguns. They call them blunderbuss. So no, which is actually a real word, but it's an interesting usage of that. Does that make sense?
And then in Brick, they have the pin, and of course Brick, and then a lot of other, all the different roles of whoever the drug dealers are.
Yeah, I agree with that like completely. Anywho, so let's. I'd like to hear your opinions on this like force connection that Kylo and Rey seem to have, and there's an interesting like push and pull. Like I kind of feel with the first one's kind of where they're not sure what's going on, but through the second and third, they're connecting and realizing that they might not be all that different from each other like they thought. So what?
To the point they're sitting across from a fire, just having a chat with each other.
Yeah.
And just...
By the way, Kylo's ripped.
That was some baby making hand holding that they were doing too. I mean, that was the most NC-17 looking hand holding that I've watched on film.
Well, I really enjoyed the. I don't want to do this right now. Yeah, me neither. That was a funny.
It showed that they weren't trying to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because Snoke was doing it, or claimed he was.
Right, but then we see them. It happens 1 or 2 times after Snoke does it, and then obviously Luke is doing it too. So it's definitely something that's not Snoke unique.
No, but there is. I picked up on it on the second viewing. During the first one, when Kylo is seeing Rey there for the first time, he said something like, "You're not doing this. The effort will kill you. What's happening right now?"
Yep.
And it's.
I noticed that when I saw it tonight.
So there's some precedence, at least among the characters, that this Force illusion thing is possible. It's apparently a very difficult thing, and Kylo was like, "Yeah, that sets up what happens later." And Kylo was like,
jokingly calling it Force time, which I really love.
Force time?
Like
Force
FaceTime?
Time. That's hilarious.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I really like that.
Terrible, but I like that. What do we think it means for their future? Like Snoke is gone, but is that like? Was he engineering each time it happened, or did he create this connection with them that's going to sustain? What do we think?
Well, obviously we saw one at the end as Rey's boarding the Falcon, and Kylo is in the base on Crate. He looks up, and it's like he's looking up the ladder, and Rey looks down and sees him. And then it closes.
Right.
So right at the very end, I had forgotten it until I saw it. I literally came from the movie here, like seeing it the second time. So it's super fresh. But they do have that connection. Not nearly as long a distance, but there is that connection even after Snoke is gone. So maybe it was a floodgate that was opened.
Yeah, I agree.
It's something really. The idea of it's really cool too, and I hope that something like that kind of gets explored more. Like we've always had sort of telepathy between characters over large distances, but I think there's a lot of interesting ground to be explored with this idea.
Right, and that's not new.
Also that.
Well, it's nothing new in Star Wars. So, for example, Force Ghosts, we don't see a Force Ghost until Empire, but we hear Obi-Wan in A New Hope after he's killed. So the notion that a spirit can live on in the Force and still give guidance or outlook or whatever it is, that's planted, and then they say, oh, he can also come back as a Force Ghost. So
we're going to talk about Force Ghosts.
So in Empire, you have where Luke reaches out and talks to Leia telepathically, and then Vader reaches out and talks to Luke telepathically as they're fleeing from Bespin, and then same thing here. You just take something where a seed was already planted and dial it up to 11.
Can we mention how awesome Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley are?
They're fantastic.
Especially Adam Driver. He was really good in the last movie. I like his work in some other stuff. Daisy Ridley, I think, showed a lot more range here than she did in the first one.
Yep.
And not to say she was bad, but she did a good job with what was given. But there's a lot. The highs and lows of Rey, I think, are a lot more dynamic in this movie than they were previously.
Well, and I just think that's the nature of her character, is that, you know, she kind of, as Luke was in A New Hope, you know, she's
a farm boy.
Yeah, she was stuck on this planet, and, you know, didn't really have any expectations.
That's pretty much knowing.
And yeah. And so so with this film, you know, she had within, I guess, a week or a month, whatever the time between was, had experienced going up against a Sith Lord and like blowing up a planet and watching people die, and you know, like, yeah, that's going to change
her life has become a lot more interesting than it was.
Yeah.
What about you, James? What do you think of Rey and Kylo, like, during and after The Last Jedi?
Who went up against the Sith Lord?
Say what?
We're talking about Luke went up against the Sith Lord?
Oh no, Rey did, or she went to Kylo. She faced Kylo,
Yeah.
who may or may not be a Sith Lord.
No, they're not Sith.
Yeah,
It's actually all over the visual dictionary that Snoke praises Darth Vader for destroying the Sith.
that's
Because
cool.
he's kind of as big of a fanboy of Darth Vader as Kylo is. So he went and found a Darth Vader cosplayer. Actually, how freaking cool would it have been to see Adam Driver as Anakin Skywalker? Like,
Oh, dude, I've said that myself. If Adam Driver could have played Anakin, then the prequels, if none of the writing changed,
yeah,
It would have been better if there are other half decent actors who could have been Anakin
Yeah.
also. So
yeah,
I mean, you know, Liam Neeson is great, and Ewan McGregor is great, and some of their performances were even strange, which I think is, you know, because of the directing and writing. But
Lucas is
yeah,
a personal opinion probably, but Lucas was never the strongest acting director
oh
in
no,
Hollywood.
absolutely.
or dialogue
Yeah.
writer.
Or dialogue writer. True.
I think he would even agree with you on that point to a degree. Like, he's kind of like a big picture storyteller. Like,
Right.
he's got the big ideas.
Well, he creates worlds like nobody else. So.
Yeah, exactly. But Brandon, what was your question?
Oh, we're just talking about Rey and Kylo and how awesome they are, and like how they've changed
Yeah.
between the movies.
But it's cool because when they did The Force Awakens, you know, they did all the reshoots with Daisy and John Boyega, and they basically made them a lot more kind of bubbly and fun. Because I think Rey, in some of her original footage that they shot, and you can still see it when she's kind of by herself on Jakku, like,
Right.
she's kind of grumpy, and you get it. You're like, I mean, I would be grumpy too. But in this, they took out some of the bubbly
I live alone on a desert.
of her character, and I like her better to show more range. Like, you don't just have to be bubbly and likable and positive just so the audience is sure to go, wow, she is lovely. I like her a lot. And in this one, you know, you see a lot more range of emotion from her. So
I like that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now I want this one is gonna split us up here, and James, I'd like you to start because you might feel a little bit differently than the rest of us. How did you feel about the way Luke was portrayed in this movie, his dynamic with Rey? No, you can. I'm not going to say. Nobody's going to say anybody's wrong.
I don't know. Like, disappointed is a light way of putting it.
Okay.
I mean, you know, I read the EU, but was not expecting a rehash of the EU. And I think a lot of people who like the movie and, you know, dismiss arguments from people who disliked it are like, oh, you just wanted to watch the EU being told over again, or you just want to watch, you know, you had expectations going in. And I think I went in with very much like, all right, show me the natural progression of Luke Skywalker as a Jedi Master. And instead it was like, you know, we have this kid who would rather die, would rather throw his weapon to the ground and be killed than hurt his father, who he believes in. But this guy, you know, supposedly also makes some huge mistake. And I don't care if it is for just a second, where he's like, oh, I could kill Ben Solo. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. But then, like, for me, drama and like these huge plot twists and moments based on miscommunications are like soap opera type writing. You know, like everyone makes fun of Battlestar Galactica Season 2 because a lot of it's based on these miscommunications and characters that just aren't talking to each other. And I think that that's like kind of a cop-out way of writing where like you have one misunderstanding and now these characters hate each other forever. And I'm like, oh, that's like show me actual, emotion and drama, not just this one whoopsie that's supposed to have altered the course of history for the entire galaxy.
Whoopsie.
Well,
Yeah.
may I
No, please.
like you
go
said,
for it.
I don't feel that you're wrong. The interpretation that I came away with that scene and that whole miscommunication was, because I've heard people having that same feeling that, Luke shouldn't want to kill his nephew and stuff. And, I don't feel that anybody is ever, 100% good or 100% bad. But what I think the scene is more about is that is that's what Kylo needed. And I think that's why the scene and everything that happens is needed. Because I felt that Kylo was, from the description that Luke gave, he was pretty much on, in the dark side. And I think, he just needed that excuse to just kind of cross that line. So I think it was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back in a way.
So it kind of gave Ben Solo a convenient excuse to be Kylo Ren instead.
Right. It wasn't my fault. Luke was trying to kill me. I was defending myself.
That
Brat.
and he's the most lovable brat that's ever been in a science fiction movie.
Oh yeah.
But I really liked the way Luke was in this movie because it was a little bit different than I expected. But I almost think this was one of the more logical progressions based on what was set up in The Force Awakens. Because if Luke has gone to this secret island that nobody can find in the entire galaxy.
But everybody knows there's a map.
Everyone knows there's a map to it, but you can't. Anywho, so that's a little convenient. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it wouldn't make sense for him to feel like he has to go disappear for some amount of time, and then the moment somebody shows up, or even shortly after somebody shows up, hey, can you come help me? Yeah, okay. So I guess the issue isn't necessarily, if I were to have any issue with it, it wouldn't be anything in this movie. It's that the last movie, before Rian Johnson touched any of it, kind of set it up on a path that was going to upset some people. But I also think that based on the events that we see, Luke has had dark side edge moments before, and it passes. He said, "What does he say?" Like he says, it passed like a fleeting shadow. If for that moment he considered it, and then he immediately caught himself, but it has never cost him so much before, and that's why I think it works for me. It's like he considered killing Darth Vader, but Darth Vader was already defeated. So he did the right thing. He threw his weapon away and said, "I'm not going to kill this man," because it was the right thing to do. And I think that's what Luke would have done in the following seconds if Kylo hadn't reacted the way that he did.
See, and that, I don't know, my disagreement there would be that all that says to me is he learned nothing from his encounter with the Emperor and by sparing Vader. If he's just going to go and have that same moment of weakness again later, like it's like, it's like someone getting out of committing murder and then going and killing someone again, and you're like, dude, did you not learn the first time to not do this?
And I get that too. And I would like to say one of the big reasons it works for me is Mark Hamill does incredible work with what he is given. And I think
he did really well.
He probably gives one of, if not the best live action performance of his career.
I agree.
And so maybe I believed it because of Mark, but
I think he
even
was
Mark
better
Hamill has,
at Grumpy Luke than he was at the other Luke, honestly.
and that's fair.
Like,
And there are moments in this movie where he sees R2D2, and this like
yeah.
old Luke comes out just
Mhm.
for that 2 minutes, and
Yeah.
it's
And he
perfect.
says, like, Chewie, and you're like, and I honestly believed his performance more as the darker version than I did when he had the flickers of light show up. And I'm like, man, Mark's really digging this. Like, I think he took it as a challenge and he enjoyed it. So, even though he initially disagreed with it, he was like, well, whatever. This is what the director wants. And, I'm a professional. I'm going to do it.
And that says a lot to him too.
Yeah.
This Mark is a stand-up guy, and he's always about making people laugh, and he's predicated his post Star Wars career on that. Like, and this was a big departure for basically any work he's ever done before, and he does a great job with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now we do have to hit. We're probably getting close, so I might knock some of the stuff off the end, but we got to hit the death of Luke, and we want to talk about. I want everybody to talk about how they feel about it, how it was handled in this movie, and what it means for the future of Star Wars. For this one, I'm going to go first. I was, and maybe you remember, because we were when they first announced the Disney deal, like in 2012, we were playing a Star Wars pen and paper RPG, and this was it happened one of the days we were off, and we got together and we talked about it a lot. My takeaway on the original cast is, especially after The Force Awakens, is that their story is largely over. So if you compare characters that exist in the prequels and in the original trilogy, those people like Yoda and Obi-Wan, they have small but very important roles in the original trilogy. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how the original cast fits in here. And I mentioned I don't know if it was the same night, but we talked about it during this RPG, and it was what my takeaway on it was, even back then, was if I have to watch the deaths of these characters, which I felt was likely even at that point, if I have to watch Luke Skywalker die, I wanted it to be from a place of peace, and they gave me Luke Skywalker fading away just like Yoda does. Like, I didn't want to see Luke struck down in a fight or stabbed by his offspring. Poor Han Solo. That's really sad. It's a beautiful moment. This force projection thing, they set it up that it takes a big toll on the user, and he is able to distract the First Order long enough for the remainder of the Resistance to get away, and it's peaceful and it's purposeful. That's what Ray says, but it works for me because if I had to witness it, it's exactly what I wanted. He fades away peacefully, and they even made it so that he saves everyone in the process. So as much as I hate to see him go, I don't think it could have been done better based on the other stuff that happens in this movie.
I think what I liked about it was that without fighting, which is something the Jedi struggled with in the prequels and something that led to their downfall, in that they fought with violence and that's what cost them everything. So for him to show up and fight without actually fighting is very clever on Ryan's part and very clever on in-universe like Luke's part.
It takes what Luke kind of, and to a degree, I think accurately describes as a legacy of failure. Because like the Jedi method is a lot of the reason that like we lost Anakin Skywalker and some other bad things have happened in the lore, etc. But you're right. Like that's an interesting take on it. I think is it's a really pacifist approach right at the end, and that was kind of the Jedi's outlook. That makes a lot of sense, James.
Yeah, because he saved people without doing anything violent. Now, having said that, I believe someone said earlier they were really looking forward to Luke's moment where he just wrecks everything, and that would have been really cool because they kind of set it up with the music and that song, the Spark track on the soundtrack, is amazing, and just the build on it, and when you see Luke Skywalker walk out, and it was kind of like reminiscent of the Imperial March, and you're like, oh my god, the son of Darth Vader's about to kick ass, and then he didn't really. He did, but he didn't. Like, it was impressive what happened, and I'm sad that we'll never get to see the moment where Luke Skywalker, decimates an army like Vader is capable of. But then, honestly, the saddest thing for me is like it feels like we've done all this torch passing now. From the original trilogy and whatever to these new movies, and all we have is one movie left. Like, I don't see the point in killing all of our favorite characters, and Carrie's not going to be in the next one, so leaving her around to be into episode 9, I like, but she's still not going to be in it. So essentially, we're going to have one movie with none of the legacy heroes in it, so to speak. And like, what's the point of that? Like, we have one film that these characters won't be in. It'd be different if we did all this setup for the new trio to have a trilogy, which, by the way, Poe only just finally said hello to Rey at the end of the second movie. So anyone who says these characters are a trio is delusional, because they've only just said hello one time. Like, they are the main characters, sure, but
and then
it's not.
Finn spends more time with Rose in this movie. Like, he doesn't get reunited with Rey until the end.
Yeah, or Poe.
I really like Rose, by the way. I don't know if we'll get to it. I had some issues with the mission they go on in the casino world, but I liked Rose and Finn together.
I liked Rose.
May I just throw this out?
Please.
As far as going into the next movie, does no one feel that we're going to see a ghost Luke? Because
I definitely think we will, especially considering that we're not going to get Carrie, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But listen, I would love to see them play on that last bit of dialogue that Luke has. It's like, if you strike me down, then I'll always be with you, just like your father. And the last Luke Skywalker's last words are, "I'll see you around, kid."
Yep.
And then he fades out. So like, I almost want to see Luke like haunting Kylo, like from a place of like he'll instill doubt when Kylo's about to do something evil. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And he makes us so sparkly glowing.
Just,
robot chicken.
Yeah.
Having Leia and Luke both give up on Kylo, I just don't have any hope for Kylo being redeemed. I don't want him to be redeemed. He went kind of psychopath on trying to murder his mom, and he killed his dad. Like, I love Kylo Ren and Adam Driver, but I'm like, I don't want to see you be a good guy now. Like,
yeah, we've seen that story twice already. Let's see.
Let's do something else.
Yeah. That's what
it would have been cool.
And I'm going to jump to
Please.
My favorite part of the film, The Last Jedi, and it's my favorite of all of Star Wars, is the moment in the throne room.
Yep,
when,
I hoped you were saying
Rey
this.
grabs the saber after Snoke was killed, and it was, for me, it was everything that I love and loved about Star Wars, and that feeling of like, just like this person finally coming into their own and like, discovering who they are and standing up, and then them back to back. There was that moment of, where the hell is this going? And I am 100% on board. Let's do it.
And then they dashed it as soon as it was over.
That was I had most of my issues. In fact, any issue I can recall immediately I had with the movie happened before that. And I know some people are going to be disappointed by Snoke being unceremoniously like bifurcated, but
he wasn't the story.
Yeah, and I think there's some cool stuff with Snoke that can be explored elsewhere. Well, it wasn't necessarily relevant to this, and it's like I didn't like him much in the last movie. It's like big
They could have
looming, big
done
looming
those
figure.
books already.
So I'm sorry, say again.
They could have done those books already, though. Like, it's different if you withhold information and then explain something in a film. But if you weren't going to do that, just give me a damn book about Snoke.
That's true.
You know, like
I totally agree with that.
we had a Phasma book, like,
We
and it
did.
explained
and we
a
all know
lot
how
about
that one
her.
turned out.
Yeah, so like it, and everyone's like, well, we might learn more about Snoke in the next movie, and sure, we could, but I doubt they're going to spend a lot of time on a character that they killed.
I doubt it would happen, but I would like to see a movie about Luke's academy and exactly what went down between Snoke and Kylo off screen,
Right.
and whatever, like
Yeah.
these things Luke were talking about. Like I felt darkness in his training, but I didn't realize how bad it was until right now. Like I want to see that, and maybe that will make myself and others believe better
Yeah, and the
how
whole
things worked out exactly.
Snoke is hyper fixated on Skywalker, and I don't believe it's just he's the last Jedi, so we have to kill him for my grand plan to work. No, I think there's something more personal between Snoke and Skywalker.
And that's what I like how they made the Luke and Kylo dynamic so personal. And in fact, like I watched The Force Awakens right before I went, or like the week of a couple of days before I watched The Last Jedi, and when it was still fresh in my mind and seeing exactly what happens with Luke and Kylo and stuff, when Han's talking about it and he says there were stories, nobody knows exactly what happens. Like I hate to say it, but I think it works well for the story here. Like maybe Han had heard something like Luke drew a lightsaber against Ben, and he didn't want to say because maybe he doesn't believe it. Maybe he doesn't believe that would ever happen. But like he talks about it like there are rumors, and it's there. I think there's some interesting stuff there that probably won't get told, but it's relevant to each person's version of the story.
I could believe that. I could see Ben Solo running to one of his parents, maybe even Han, after the fall of Luke's academy and telling him what happened, and then Han wanting to believe him, but also being kind of pissed. Because when I saw the Force Awakens, it gives a very heavy feeling that maybe Han Solo was just a really shitty parent. Because he says, he's not the father you're looking for.
He would
have disappointed you. So I was like, wow, was Han Solo a crappy parent? And I haven't read all of the books in between, but like in the Bloodlines novel, there's definitely not a notion that Han and Leia were bad parents. They definitely send off Ben to train with Luke because they think that's a good idea. But
Leia did. Han was Han about it.
Han was Han about it. Yeah. So, but I think that from what little I've seen of the in-between lore, Han definitely wasn't a bad parent. I think maybe Kylo, at the time Ben still, went to Han, and Han said, nope, that would never happen. You need to, calm down and come to your senses, son. And that just made it worse. Maybe.
Yeah.
Completely hypothetical.
Now I'm even more depressed about what happened to Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
Okay, so I got some quick things I want to hit on. The other people who die in this movie, Phasma.
Hey, Phasma fell into a hole, and there was some fire, but she had her armor on that we know deflects blaster bolts, and we already know that people in Star Wars who fall aren't always dead.
Yeah, but when they fall into darkness, it's one thing. She basically had the same death as the Grand Inquisitor in the season 1 finale of Star Wars Rebels, where she falls into an explosion, and you go,
true.
"Okay, you're dead."
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, maybe she'll come back. I don't think she will.
Well, Anakin.
There's no really reason for her to
swallowed
come
by a
back.
volcano, and he lived.
that's fair. Yeah, Anakin fell into lava flow and lived through it. We kind of mentioned Snoke. I didn't dig Snoke in the first movie. And I was shocked when Snoke just kind of fell apart off his chair. That one really landed.
That was
I
awesome.
think that was their mistake in The Force Awakens from being too open-handed with Snoke. So I was thinking about it when comparing the Emperor to Snoke, and the Emperor in the throne room is very similar. It's this big, powerful guy, and he has a lot of great dialogue and everything, but at the end he just kind of dies because Vader picks him up, and that's completely, the short version of it. But through the movies before that, you hear him mentioned a couple times in A New Hope. It's like there's the Emperor.
We didn't know anything about the Emperor until the prequel.
And then you have Empire Strikes Back, and the Emperor talks to Vader once.
He's a floating head.
Yeah, he's a floating head. And you're like, I don't know who this Emperor guy is, but obviously he's Vader's master, and the biggest badass in cinema kneels to him and is his,
and that's a big deal.
It's his lapdog. Yeah, so that's a big deal. And then you finally see him, so it was built up. And the Emperor was a mysterious entity behind everything that we finally saw, and there were reasons, there were undertones through the previous movies that said, this is somebody you should be scared shitless of. Like when Vader lands on the second Death Star and says, the Emperor's coming here to oversee, the final construction.
Here.
And he is not as forgiving as I am. What?
Yeah, it's dark. The person who, upon disappointing him his certain death, is more forgiving than the Emperor.
Yeah, but then Snoke, we see Snoke for like 10 minutes of screen time in The Force Awakens, and he's doing this like bad father thing, like stoking this sibling rivalry between Hux and Kylo, which I think is great. But then we see him in the second movie, and there was no mystery behind Snoke that made the Emperor what he was.
I agree. I gotta throw one out for Admiral Akbar.
Yeah,
what is that?
Rip.
He's like the only character like that was important on the bridge other than Leia, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And
One more original trilogy alien out the window, literally.
Literally out the window.
Killed off screen in some dialogue.
Yeah.
Unceremoniously.
And then at least 2 porgs die in this movie. We gotta
at least 2 porgs.
Yeah, and then he didn't.
I remember somebody on the internet said
they're already dead.
I remember somebody on the internet said that they would give up on Star Wars if anybody killed a porg, or if someone kills a porg, they'd kill that person. So somebody is going to kill Chewbacca now. Somebody on the internet.
I dare him.
Bring it on.
Peter Mayhew.
Bring it. Yeah.
That
Now,
person,
porgs, so
he'll
that
tear
person
it
better have a moon.
just do you have a moon? You'll need it.
You're gonna need a moon.
I-
The thing about Snoke too, in the visual dictionary, I don't know if you guys read it. They're heavily alluding to the fact that Snoke is the Prime Jedi, like the first of the Jedi Order. They call the Prime Jedi the first of the Order, which is very particular phrasing for the First Order.
True.
Like there's obviously some connection, and then there's that little tile mosaic with the water on it that Luke and Rey sit at in the temple,
Right.
and that has it. I mean, it really looks like Snoke. So
And it has light and dark. I didn't notice that in my first viewing, but when I was looking at it tonight, I was like, "That's awesome."
So you're totally. It's like a yin and yang sort of thing. I didn't register that.
And it looks. I'd have to go back and watch, but it seemed to. It made me think of in the Clone Wars when they go to the Force planet with the father and the brother and sister.
yeah,
I think it's similar, at least similar iconography to
it
what's
is. Yeah,
in
absolutely.
his arena. So.
One more point, and then I'm gonna get everybody's closing thoughts. I want to know what everybody thinks of Leia in space.
Horrible.
My
liked
thoughts
it.
on it are, it is an incredibly important character moment for each of them, for Kylo and for Leia. Kylo hesitates. Like
No, he doesn't hesitate. He says, "I'm not."
He says, "I'm not going to pull the trigger," and then his fighters pull the trigger. And I almost expected Kylo to like secretly demolish those fighters.
Oh yeah, I did too.
Yeah, but there's like this. Kylo decides he's not going to do it, and then the TIE fighters shoot the missiles. Leia gets sucked outside. There were ways that you could say exactly the same character beats. Leia could have a near-death experience that doesn't suck her out into. I think my opinion of that is it just breaks a few too many rules.
Yeah.
She could have had something fall on her, and she could force levitate it off. Like, I'm not a writer, I don't know what to do. Like, but there are other ways you could, without changing anything, up to the explosion. And I love it. I love the moment where her hand touches the glass. Like, change everything in between there, and it's even beautiful. Like the shots of Leia in space are breathtaking. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
No, and to your point, you say there's many ways you can say the same thing, but what character beats do you need to say? Your important part was Kylo almost shooting, not shooting, and then revealing Leia has force powers. We already know she's force sensitive. It's said in the original trilogy.
I think she's more powerful in the force than the original trilogy lets on. but she hasn't been trained by Luke.
True. In fact, in the Points of View short story collection, Yoda is sitting there talking about how the young Skywalker will be the one to bring balance back to the Force, and she has a lot of promise, but her brother's young and reckless. So
now he's old and reckless.
Yeah, so Yoda thought Leia was going to be the chosen one. So yeah, she is definitely strong in the Force, but her connecting with Luke while she's in the coma, like there are other ways that you could more elegantly show it instead of, oh, we need to blow up the bridge, which we didn't need to blow up the bridge because the important part was Kylo not blowing up the bridge. And if you really wanted to kill Akbar, you could have anyway. I mean,
so do you think that Leia was actually in control, or did the midichlorian take over and create the force field around her?
Well, we know you can live in space. Like, you can survive brief exposure to total vacuum.
Is that because I thought like the air in your lungs and your blood and stuff like boils and you explode. Like you don't freeze to death. You
can
pop
live
like
for a while. You can live for a little while. Apparently,
it's like 8
Space
seconds.
Odyssey does it the most scientifically accurate.
Yeah.
It's not like step out the door
Sunshine
and suddenly.
also. You ever seen Sunshine?
So the movie Sunshine, yeah, with Chris Evans in it.
So they do a good job of showing it in that, where they wrap themselves in insulation, and then the one guy, your eyeballs boil, so you have to keep them closed. But like, so long as you don't let any of the cold air into your lungs and open your eyes, then you can last about 8 to 10 seconds with a lot of frostbite.
Yeah. Well,
nice. And that's a great movie, by the way. Danny Boyle directed it. So people check that out. It's called Sunshine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Let's remember, space isn't really cold because there isn't air; it's a vacuum.
Right.
Which is why it's like space is cold because there's no temperature, so things will freeze. But
it's
your blood
absorbing
boils
the
because of
temperature.
pressure.
Yeah, like
the low pressure.
The air in your blood and in your lungs suddenly becomes infinite volume, and then you pop like a zip and bleed out. It's terrible. But
it's not instantaneous, and you can live a little while in total vacuum. And again, Anakin Skywalker surrounded himself with the Force to survive on Mustafar, so it's not surprising to see that possibly happening.
Han and Leia survive, like they walk out in what they believe is the inside of an asteroid that would be exposed to the vacuum of space. So like I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it. It didn't work for me. But again, I love everything surrounding it. The specific handling of how she recovers didn't work for me.
Yeah, I didn't think of her as flying. I thought of her as kind of force pulling herself to the ship.
I agree with that.
I would agree with that interpretation of it. That's fair.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I first saw it.
And actually, I heard someone say maybe Kylo gives her a push, and I was like, I don't like that as much.
I don't think that's what it is. But again, I can explain it away in Star Wars as much as we want because there's other similar circumstances, and the Force has for a long time been very MacGuffin-y. Oh, we need this to happen. We need Ben to show up and say, yeah, you shouldn't run off and fight Vader. Or, yes, he is your father. You were questioning that, but let me sit down next to you and tell you, yes, Luke, I lied. So there's always MacGuffin-y things like bringing back Force Ghosts because you want Alec Guinness in this movie, too.
You don't fire Alec Guinness.
True. So it's always been a little bit MacGuffin-y for what the plot needs. But as much as I can explain it and rationalize it, I still think it was a stupid way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did that several times in the movie where they could have done, one of a dozen options, and I think some of them worked and some of them did not.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's what, and it's the biggest thing for me is I wanted something different. I wanted a movie that surprised me and that I didn't expect, and like, it's a shame that I don't like how some things turned out, but I got to hand it to Ryan for nothing real. Most of the stuff in this movie don't play out the way that I expected. And that's true.
Yeah, but I think it's almost intentionally so. Like if you had some thoughts and some theories going into this movie, they're like, haha, screw you for liking Star Wars. Doe, did you have an idea? Guess what? He's nobody. You're all wrong. And you're like, okay.
That's one thing. That's one thing we missed.
We need to talk about
we do, and we're almost out of time. I think we just hit an hour, or we're seconds away from it.
We'll just edit it and make it so the boring part's on there.
Okay. My thoughts on Rey were the Force has awakened in a lot of people. I didn't want Rey to be related to anybody in particular because I think that makes the galaxy feel really small. So maybe they would have been characters that we saw in Jakku or in some other movie. I don't know, but she's a new powerful Force user, and it kind of plays up to that thing at the end with the broom kid who reaches out, and this cup isn't going to come to me. I can't use the Force, but
I didn't notice it the first time I saw it.
yeah, like he reaches out and the broom grabs him, and like in Rey is super strong in the Force. Like the Force has kind of major Force users have been gone for a while, and now the Force is kind of coming back around and waking up in a lot of people.
Right.
And I think that's who Rey is. She's just this person who happens to be Force sensitive.
Well, I think Rey is from nobody. That makes a lot of sense. But I have long been a proponent of this. But my answer is Shmi Skywalker was nobody.
That's fair, and they never say in the movie, like it could be argued that Palpatine sort of engineers
that was
Anakin's
in one of the original
from the background.
Don't talk about it. That's
yeah,
bad.
it's like I think it's possible.
It's possible, but
they never mentioned that in the movie.
But
they never explain anything about who the Palpatine's relation to Plagueis either, and that's been speculated on too.
And there was a no longer canon book.
And that was kind of poorly written, also.
But
like, I don't
there
know.
is a novel, yeah.
My point, I actually really like that novel. Lucino is my favorite Star Wars author, but that's another discussion for another day. But my point is, I think I am in the camp that Rey is the one, and there's lore in Star Wars that the one has been reincarnated several times. It explains a lot of things. Why the lightsaber comes to her. Why she has such a connection with Kylo. Maybe she is the one reincarnated, and Kylo is the one's grandson. And all these things. And when she's in the dark side creepy pit on the island, she goes up to the mirror and says, "Who are my parents?" And you see a reflection of her standing back. She is her own parent. And again, her real parents are nobody. They're junk dealers who sold her away for drinking money. Well, again, Shmi Skywalker was nobody. She was a slave on Tatooine.
See, but here's the thing that I came away with that scene. I don't necessarily believe that. I believe that Kylo wanted her to feel, hey, you're nothing. You're nothing to nobody, but you're something to me.
You're alone, and you should feel alone, but you matter to me.
Right. So come with me. You and I can be together and be important to each other. And so I don't know if there's a deeper meaning to her parents or whatever. I just feel that particular explanation was just Kylo manipulating her, and I feel the dark side in the cave was doing something very similar.
Weird scene.
Kind of like whetting her appetite, kind of like a drug dealer. Like, here's a little of what you want, but you gotta come in all the way before you get the full experience.
What do you think about the Rey thing, James?
It'd be cool if she was a quote unquote nobody. If this was the Rian Johnson separate trilogy, this is the saga of the Skywalkers.
Yep.
So I'm not really interested in these big, powerful one, like the one of the Force type characters that aren't Skywalkers.
We have Kylo though, and Kylo
But if Kylo's a bad guy and you're going to kill him in the next movie, then he's the last Skywalker. Like, he's it. There's no more.
Oh, and then the legacy of Skywalker is
bad.
Darth Vader and Kylo Ren, who are both mass murderers.
Right. So that kind of pisses me off. So.
Right, but what really is the legacy of Skywalker? Like, yeah, Skywalker is a name, but it's only a name because you had Anakin Skywalker, who was the son of Shmi Skywalker. The quote Skywalker storyline is really the storyline of the one.
Okay,
it's the one and the one's kids and the one's grandkids.
I don't hate the idea of like she's the new chosen one.
Right.
That's an idea that some people don't like that appeared in the prequels, but it's like I'm more akin to that than her like suddenly being related to Obi-Wan or the grandson of Anakin, like somehow another branch of the Skywalker family, or like I don't know.
I feel like that's reaching because like we've assigned the one to 3 different characters now, and we're just gonna like kick it on down the road and be like,
Well,
oh,
it's
the next
like
character that
you-
shows up, well, they're the one
Maybe
also.
it rotates every generation.
Well, again, there's lore that the one reincarnates. So if it was Anakin Skywalker, who the movie overtly says was the chosen one, then this is just Anakin Skywalker reincarnated, which is why Rey has a pull to the light.
And
Last
the one
time,
was
the
Luke.
one had a pull to the dark.
After that,
Um,
after Anakin, the one was Luke. So,
But
okay, does anyone closing thoughts before we wrap it up? And then I have a present for you guys, and we're going to open on the show.
I would like to talk about Canto Bight, but we're running on time.
Yeah, we're. Quick.
I felt,
Those are your closing remarks.
Yeah,
My closing remarks.
Quick thought on Canto Bight.
All right, so Canto Bight. I wasn't a huge fan of the sequence. I didn't like it. I've talked on length on the internet about how there were no Twi'leks, and that's a short way
no
of saying there
classic
were no,
aliens whatsoever.
Yeah, there were no classic aliens at all. It's like, yeah, the galaxy's a big place, and I am completely a fan. As somebody who plays the Star Wars role-playing games, give me more species. I love it. It makes the playground bigger.
Also, give me what I recognize.
Like when you
Give me
find
40
the Master
new ones, but
Codebreaker.
3 old ones.
Yeah, let's say when you find the Master Codebreaker and he's got the 2 attractive ladies next to him, and he's like, "Hold on, beautiful, not now. I'm on a winning streak." Make her a Twi'lek. Everything else the same. Make her a Twi'lek, and suddenly it is Star Wars. We're grounded in Star Wars. Also, side note, I thought about this tonight. How badass would it have been if the Master Codebreaker had been Lando? Just a cameo.
It should have been Lando.
Just a cameo. Like, he doesn't get involved in the plot. Then you see him running up, and there's Lando, old high roller, on the thing. And then you've got Maz Kanata, who's like, he's like, oh, this sounds like he can do it all. Oh, he can.
Oh, he can.
Which is totally Lando.
Yeah, and then like
Anyway,
Absolutely.
Face, awkward face. My response to that would be they would need to rewrite the ending of that bit because I'm not okay with Lando screwing over everybody again. He did that in Empire.
No, not the Master, not Benicio del Toro's character, the actual Master
Oh,
Codebreaker.
so you're not
Yeah.
eliminating.
The guy on
So
the table.
Benicio would still be there.
it's just
Yeah.
a cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
the-
just the guy there with the lapel pin, who I believe was the actual Master Codebreaker.
Right.
He was.
This is the guy they were actually
Benicio's
looking
in.
for.
Yeah. If that had just been Lando, it would have been golden. But that's
And
a
Ryan's
pipe
like,
dream.
I didn't find a good spot for Lando. And we're like, well, have you seen Star Wars? Like,
Exactly.
that was the part.
But my closing comment on that is Canto Bight. I didn't like the connotation of the scene. I didn't like it partially because there weren't aliens, and I wasn't a huge fan of how preachy it really got. But when I started thinking about it tonight, that preachiness
We're gonna go
was
on.
largely Benicio del Toro saying, "Yeah, they're selling arms to the First Order, but look, they also sold arms to the good guys." And I originally thought of it as preachy against like war and kind of like a preachy against arms dealing.
It's more like
But it's
good and evil and gray area.
It's exhibiting that gray area, and it's a different place besides the Force to say, you see, not everything is black and white anymore.
I'm
So
gonna.
it's an
I will
interesting
fill in
plot
there.
device.
The Canto Bight thing. I think someone on your Facebook page, James, said it feels like a mediocre Rebels episode, like dropped into the movie.
Yeah, it's like a filler.
Yeah, and
episode.
it has a super video gamey sort of setup where it's like, go click on this console, and the person will give you a mission,
Yep.
and then you go do this mission, and it's like, I love Finn, and I really liked Rose, but every time I went back to this, it slowed the movie down, and there's a lot of thematic
30
material
minutes
in there that I think is important to Star Wars. It's not important to this movie.
Yeah.
Well,
Like
I think it's important to the tone, again, similar to the gray area of the new trilogy, in that it breaks your expectation of success.
Okay.
Similar to Poe's side story, but that's, again, we're going to go way
Yeah,
long. if
we
get
didn't.
into that.
We can't talk about that. Canto Bight / closing remarks. Stacy.
I really enjoyed the film from the moment that Rey arrived on Snoke's ship.
Okay.
Everything before that, except for her interactions with Luke, I could have done without.
Space Milk.
Walrus.
Space walrus?
Hey, we know where blue milk comes from now.
But
How'd they
yeah,
get to Tatooine?
from
Bantha milk. That's Bantha milk.
from Rey landing on Snoke's ship until the end, and I loved the way it ended with the child and the broom and everything. I loved that part of the movie. Didn't like the first part.
What about you, James? Your closing thoughts? Anything you'd like to say that we haven't covered yet?
I don't know. Probably. I'm still working my way up to seeing it again, I almost half want to bring a tablet of paper so I can write stuff in the good and bad side,
Right.
just so I
If
can
it will-
convince myself that I liked more than I disliked.
If it'll help, I enjoyed it much better the second time, but I also, the issues stuck out to me more, if that makes sense. Like, I enjoyed it overall better the second time, but I'm also like, yeah, all the things I didn't like, they're definitely still a problem.
Yeah, I really don't think they're going to change the characterization of Luke Skywalker between now and the next time I see it. So,
No, you're not wrong.
but you know, like The Force Awakens, I enjoyed watching. I didn't enjoy watching Han Solo die. This movie, I didn't really have fun, if that makes sense. You know,
Okay,
I like
that's
movies
fair.
that are fun. I think a lot of the moments that were set up to be fun, like Luke with his big dramatic walk outside, I was like, oh, there's about to be some shit go down. And then, like, there wasn't really anything that went down.
What
I
we
mean,
got was
kind
a
of.
shoulder brush.
What?
What we got was a shoulder brush.
Yeah. Like, so there were a couple of moments where, in this movie, where things were set up. And I think the goal of subverting all of our expectations was like distracting to the actual enjoyment of the movie for me. Like,
Okay.
yeah, I get it. Like, you're trying to
fair.
play on my, like, you're trying to set up things and then twist them every time. But once we did the fifth or sixth one of like, oh, we're gonna go to the Canto Bite thing and DJ's gonna turn on us. So we're gonna go do this, but that didn't work out. We're gonna try and send the ships out to the crate. Oh, but those are getting blown up, and we're gonna like, and then Kylo's gonna become good, but no, he's not. He's still bad. And I was like, I get it, guys. You don't want me to have thoughts about Star Wars. Okay.
They want you to have lots of thoughts. They just want you to be wrong.
Yeah, I guess so. So, you know.
Well, they
like,
did kick a bunch of previous thoughts in the butt with this movie. So I see where
Even a
I
lot
see
of
where
the
you're
things that
coming
I
from.
felt like were set up in The Force Awakens are just like.
Well,
I feel like they set up a lot in Force Awakens, but then didn't like Ryan was like, yeah, but I hate that idea, so let's end it really quickly or without explanation.
Well,
And then
I saw an interview with JJ, or I read about an interview with JJ and Ryan, where they didn't really have an overarching plot line where they wanted to go after The Force Awakens.
Like JJ set up a lot of stuff and then didn't really explain it on purpose so that someone else could then make sense of it, which I think was a mistake.
It was lazy.
He's like, well, yeah, I think it was.
JJ, though.
Like,
He's all like JJ's a TV director, and he does a few things very, very well. And I like The Force Awakens for the most part, but he's definitely a TV director, and he's all about the next episode.
Lost.
I'm sorry, say that again, James.
They're like, look at Lost and tell me that JJ has a plan for the end of his things he sets up. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's true. Like,
Oh, I think he had a plan for the first 3 seasons, but when the studio
Yeah, like the
ordered
writer's
7
strike
more
messed up a lot of
seasons-
stuff for that. But that's another conversation. I want to thank everybody for coming on. You can see down here at the bottom, how do I reach it? There it is. At the bottom, you can see my website, my Facebook page. Over there, you can see James's Facebook page, facebook.com/TheRealLucasMcCoy. You can see more video reviews and text reviews if you go to the website, engine25production.com, or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/engine25production. I'd like to thank everybody for coming.
Well, thank
Thanks.
you for having
It was
us.
a pleasure being here.
Cool, and thank
and
you
we didn't fist fight.
for calling in, James. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I have some stuff for my my gracious co-hosts in my this Force Awakens tote bag.
Is it a Poe Dameron tote bag? Oh no, it's just generic.
It's just like Force Awakens arts. We got a blind pack here, and I got one for you too, James. At the time, I wasn't sure if we would be able to, if who all would be able to make it or who would call in. So if I see you, I'll give it to you. But
Cool.
I want to kind of Stacy, you go first and see what you got.
Okay, so if anybody gets the red throne room guard, that one's mine.
The Praetorian
Which
Guards
one
are
comes out of
so
this box?
He's calling the Red Throne Room Guard.
Praetorian guards are really cool.
Oh, and they have.
Oh
a
yeah, the
black bag.
Praetorian Guards, and that was
They were
like
pretty great.
that's like by far the best action scene in the whole movie, and probably one of my favorites in Star Wars.
Like
Yeah,
there
it's
weren't
one
a
of the
lot
best
of
fights.
new costumes and toys for this movie because there weren't a ton of new characters, and like I don't know anyone who's like,
What'd you
man,
get?
I need that
I got
that
Leia.
DJ character.
All right. Stacy got here. Drop it maybe down in the front. Maybe they can see better. Here we go. What'd you get?
All right. I like this double blind thing. It's a
Yeah,
black bag inside of the box.
It's true.
I got a tiny Phasma
He did. He got a tiny Phasma. All right. I got something with a
with
head.
the Force Staff.
Is that what it is? It's a
Force
force
pike.
staff.
It's
He
a
had some
force
kind of
pike.
stick weapon.
It's a Force Pike, I think. I have no idea.
Oh, I got Phasma too. Double Phasma.
All the Phasmas.
What? It says on the box how
Oh, no.
rare they are. I'm guessing Phasma's pretty common.
Go ahead and open mine to see if it's a Praetorian guard.
All right.
In case Stacy wants it.
Yeah, Phasma's pretty common. Apparently, it's 1 out of 6 boxes has a Phasma.
Well, Stacy, if I get the Praetorian, you can have it.
Oh, well, thank you.
I want the Porg.
Is
Why
that
is
their
the
name?
Porg 1 in 36? That's dumb.
What was the name of the throne room guard?
Praetorians.
The Praetorian
Praetorian?
Yeah,
guard.
they don't say that in the
Nope.
movies.
No.
Praetorian guard.
Praetorian.
It's
Just
a
like
funny story. Like they
Roman history in Star Wars, whatever.
especially in the new movies, they don't name a lot of stuff. Like the planet where the Resistance base is called Dakar, and then
Mhm.
like Achto is where the Jedi temple is, where Luke is. But they never say any of that in the movies. Like they named Crate.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's
Yeah.
Crate and Jakku, but there's a bunch of other stuff in the movies that they don't mention.
True.
Ooh, we got a Snoke.
Ooh.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love the golden robe, by the way. It says a lot about Snoke.
I do too. Yeah.
Snoke is pretty rare. That one's 1 in 24.
Yep, that's
Ooh.
That's
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
Even Leia's 1 in 24.
so we got two of the most common and 2 of the kind of uncommons.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's all right. And then one more thing.
Uh-oh.
I have this book here, Last Jedi Incredible Cross Sections. Like my
neat.
studio lights are kind of covering the cover there, but it's got some really awesome art in it. And if anyone who liked this video, if you could subscribe on YouTube or like me at Facebook page, or if you're looking at this on the website, I'll have a form box. You can send me an email. Anyone who signs up for any of our social media, each time you do, you're going to get 1 entry to win this. And sometime after the holidays, I'll pick a winner and send it to you.
Hmm.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for coming again.
It was fun.
And it was fun. I don't know what we're going to do now. We can keep talking about Star Wars if you want to. But thanks for watching, everybody, and have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.